on Clear Your Clutter Inside and Out, we're talking about taking your time to do it right. Are you watching the clock to get something done in a certain amount of time instead of being worried about quality? Do you want a project rushed so you don't have to pay a contractor more money? Have you hurried through something in the past because you were on a deadline? Learn why it's worth it to take your time to do it right as we continue our month focusing on your future self. Do you control your clutter, or does your clutter control you? On Clear Your Clutter Inside and Out, we'll teach you awareness as well as action steps to create change in your life. Come on, let's get started. Today's post, and I just have to tell you, I'm excited. I record these episodes over a week, and it's been raining, and so this first day of sunshine as I record. And this was a good buy. I went in the bargain bin in Barnes & Noble, got this great little throw to wear when reading, and it's got pockets. So I'm excited. Ladies out there will understand the excitement over pockets. Today's episode was inspired by my organizing, my decluttering clients. I have been doing less physical organizing and decluttering. One, because it's physically demanding, and as I age, it's harder. Also because I just, quite honestly, I don't want to deal with poop anymore, rat poop, whatever it is. I just don't want to deal with it. I'm doing more and more things. Like, for instance, I have a client, we do an office tune-up every year. And things that are really boils down to being less physically demanding, although hanging out with poop is not fun in any regards. We have an elderly cat, so I get all my poop cleaning up in there with him. Although he's doing much better once we put him on probiotics. Anyway, joking aside, the last few clients I have been frustrated. And when I go in, I say, okay, we're not going to get this done in one day. I know it looks like a little bit to you, but if you haven't done something in 20 years, it's a lot to go through. And one client recently working in the office, and she had 3 purses. And I said, you can go through them now, which I'm a firm believer in taking your time, doing it right. And I'll work on something else, but you just have to know that this takes time. And within a 4-hour block, got a lot done, but 2 hours were spent on filing and another hour on the desk. And then when you know you're taking 20 minutes to go through 3 purses, that's 20 minutes of time you could be doing something else. And there really has seemed to be this pattern with demanding physical cluttering of frustration and people getting upset that it takes time to do it. And every time I say to my clients, it's worth it to do it once to do it right. Once you do this initial purge, because I recommend that you go through everything you own every year. We do that. We go through everything we earn every year. Last year, we did the downsizing, and we did another round at the beginning of the year. I had wanted to wait, well, where are we going to end up? We might not want to let this furniture go anyway. It's a constant project, and we keep on top of it. And this is just an example, of course, with decluttering, because that's what I do. And I don't know, I mean, I tell people this, I just feel so strongly about do it once and do it right. And so inspired today by decluttering clients, but we'll talk about a lot more. Why don't people take the time to do it right? It might be saving money. Someone doesn't want to pay me to declutter, or if they think I can get something done in 10 hours instead of 20, that saves them 10 hours worth of time, right? I respect that. I can completely understand that. One of the things my father taught me that I do is get 3 quotes and then go from there. I don't want to make anyone starve. I also don't want to overpay for something. When we had a handyman come out, one guy was $2,000 more. Everyone else was around a certain price point. And I'm like, maybe you're handyman of the stars here in Raleigh, but, we're going to go with someone else that had a price that was similar to 2 other people. Maybe someone doesn't have a lot of time, right? They're say, okay, I have to have this done. I'm having cabinets installed in the garage. I've got to get decluttered by this time. I just, maybe I just throw everything out, just put it in the shed, whatever. I don't have enough time to do it right. Perhaps there's a lot of pressure. Maybe you're in a very deadline driven industry and you just, you know what, I have no choice. This has to get out to the PR wire by 5 p.m. There is no delays. It just has to get out. So if there are a couple grammatical errors, oh well. Instead of thinking long term, like, wow, maybe someone's going to see that and comment that. I have to tell you, I'm grammatically challenged. I've been grammatically challenged all my life. I work on it. I think I'm grateful for the people in my life who aren't grammatically challenged, but that's why I have someone edit. And, and I'll never forget with my first draft, Connie said, Jules, you've got a lot of work to do on this. You want to get it out there, but you want to get it when it's right and not too early. And I have to tell you, after years of especially what I call the more in-depth book, after doing it for years, I was tired on one hand. I wanted to get it out, but I kept saying, and she was right. I want the best possible product out there. And, if you write, you can edit till the cows come home. You could write a book and a year later be like, oh, I should write that differently. But then there's that time of when, okay, it's good enough. It is ready to roll. Maybe you aren't taking the time because you're waiting on others for stuff, right? You're in an office environment and you need this component and they're just lollygagging or they don't have the ability. So maybe you skip out on that or try to do it yourself, even though it's not your job or it's not your particular skill set. And again, you might be on a deadline because of that. Perhaps you guesstimated the wrong time and you can't deliver. So you told the client, oh yeah, we can write this grant for you in 1 week. It'll take us 40 hours. But then you've never written a federal grant and you don't realize all the components and all the nitty gritty things that you have to fill out. And you're like, oh, actually it's going to take 80 hours. But you're still kind of caught up. And maybe you're afraid to say to the client, I was wrong. I need more time. And I've worked in an office environment. I understand that. I understand clients getting upset at you. Trust me. I've probably at my age been through all of it. Maybe you met an obstacle as you're doing your project and you don't know how to get around it. You're like, okay, I really don't know how to solve this. So maybe I'm just going to patch something together. Maybe you're working in your bathroom and your husband doesn't know how to do everything. This is not Tony. I don't want to get in trouble. And so he does a patch job, but it ends up being the wrong thing or can turn into something bigger. That's kind of one of my underlying points. You don't do it right, you may be suffering the consequences. You're lazy. Although I had fun this week, we did an escape room. If you've never done an escape room, I highly encourage it. It's a lot of fun. And so we were over at our friend's house and they have a 13-year-old and his science project assignment was to create a bird and use like Latin language, and it was really cute. And so he came up with a bird that eats styrofoam and radioactive waste, which I really liked. I thought that was pretty clever. And so anyway, to use a Latin name. And so I was thinking, and as I was writing this, how could I say you're lazy, but not say you're lazy? So you're not lazy, you're motivatedly challenged, right? Is that a little better than saying you're lazy? And look, there's no right or wrong in that. I am lazy and hate to iron. What I do is I put it on my list and then I'm like, okay, you better do it now because and iron 5 or 6 pieces, because if you wait a couple weeks, it's going to be 10 to 12 and then you'll be cranky because you have to spend more time ironing. Perhaps you don't take the time to do a project well because you don't care. You just really don't care. And if that's the case, I encourage you to have a choice. You have a choice, remember that, and to step back. If you really don't care about a project, why waste your time at all? If you don't care and you're not going to do it right, why bother? And just don't put that undue pressure on yourself. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your money. Don't waste your resources. So that's a time to really be aware and check in with yourself. You know, life changes. You have to course correct. Your motivations change. Your priorities change. And when that happens, that's a-okay. And you can say, you know what? I don't have the energy to devote to this right now to get it done and do it well. I'm going to put it on the back burner. Maybe 6 months from now, I can revisit it and see how I'm doing. And then perhaps peer pressure. And I was thinking of teens when I wrote this. So you all have a project and maybe someone's a studious academic and the others just don't care. And the studious person gives in to peer pressure and says, you know, okay, I'll just do a so-so job instead of doing it to the best of my abilities. When you prepare for death, you can live your life fully. How prepared are you? Where's all that information to your online asset, and would people know how to find it? What do you want people to remember about you? If you were to die suddenly, who would care for your children or your pets? Julie Coraccio can support you in end-of-life planning and organization. Visit reawakenyourbrilliance.com to learn more. So as I've shared this list, what's sticking out to you? What have been your reasons for kind of rushing through a project? Can you think of a time, maybe this is going on for you right now, perhaps in the recent past, where you have just rushed through something to get it done? What happened? How did you feel through that process? Do you think your energy might have slumped because you weren't giving it your best effort, or you rushed through, or it didn't turn out how you wanted? What were the consequences of your actions? Was it what you wanted? Was it not your best work? Did you not feel pride because of how it turned out? Or maybe it was something more serious and you lost a client. Now, I really believe that if you have honest conversations and if you have a relationship with someone, most people are going to get it. Meaning, if you were the grant writer and you realized it was going to take you more time to write that government grant, you went back and said, you know what? I messed up. I'm sorry. This is one time you should apologize. I miscalculated. I'm human. I made a mistake. Can you work within this deadline? What else can we brainstorm to come up to get it done? Can you or someone on your team perhaps work with us to meet this deadline? And I think people are open to that. And most people are human. They understand. And the honest truth is, if they don't, you don't want them as a person or a client in your life. It's not worth it. One of the things that I have stepped back from and become more discerning is who I work with. I don't want to work with people who yell and scream. I don't want to work with people who aren't taking any responsibility. I'm not willing to work with people who make me the target for everything that's going wrong in their life. And as I've done this a while, I'm able to discern that. So I want you to think right now, where in your life are you rushing through a project, and where have you done it recently, and what were the results? And more importantly, how'd you feel? How do you do a project right? My first suggestion is to plan, plan, plan. What is that carpenter term? Measure twice, cut once. Really take the time to plan your project. Think through all the steps. I know I do this, one, because it helps me feel less overwhelmed. If I were to say, write a book, what? Okay, start with the intro. Start with the dedication. Start with a chapter. Within a chapter, I want to make sure these 5 things are included. Then it's less overwhelming. And if I've really thought through something, it allows me to get a better idea. Okay, what's a realistic timeline for me here? When can I get all of this done? And the more steps you add, the more you get a really good solid picture. I also recommend you can look at this one of two ways when you're looking at like, oh, I think maybe I could do that in a week. Inject time for emergencies, or as I like to think, opportunities. If you put yourself on a really tight deadline, you don't know what's going to happen. There might be another fire to put out. There might be, you get the dream client that it's a priority and you've got to shuffle things around. Add that extra time. Be prepared that something might not go smoothly. And again, as my father said to me on my wedding day, I don't think it's going to rain or hail or sandstorm or whatever, but I'm going to be prepared just in case. So if you've kind of built in this cushion of time, planned all your steps, that's really going to give you a realistic time to get it done. And for something like a book, I would say, you know, the creative process isn't linear. There are days I can write, and then days I don't want to write at all. And in my process, like for the podcast, I'll write down an idea, then I flesh it out, then I edit it. I'm trying to be less structured, and as you know, just have notes and try not to read from everything and still remember and get my points across. So something like the creative process, and you know, it could be the same if you are remodeling your kitchen. You start to do something, oh, you know what? I really want toe kick drawers. Or you know what? This is what I want. It's not going to happen in this kitchen. Tony added toe kick drawers, which I love. I would love to have a little drawer I could pull out with food for the cats, because it would be, they wouldn't have to bend down and they could have a water bowl. I'd love to have that in a kitchen. So maybe you're remodeling and think, oh, I want that, but then that changes the plan. So you have to add time for that. So again, plan your project as much as you can. Get help, whether it's professional support, your friends, your family. Make sure that if you don't have a skill, that you don't try to rush through the project or do something you're not capable of just to get it done. You have all the things you're groovy and awesome at doing, and it's not everything. So find the people that can support you in getting it done right. They're experts in their area. You can ask them questions. You can see, and you know, if you're a DIY, absolutely have at it, but still get support. There are lots of great things on YouTube. You can find how to do something. When I was first doing the podcast, I didn't know how to put together a little commercial. I'm not kidding you. This kid must have been 10 years old on YouTube and taught me. And the first time I did like a 30-second commercial, which, you know, just involved the editing part, it took me almost an hour because I was so slow trying to figure it all out. And this young little gentleman helped me. But I needed help, and so I went and got it. Make sure you're doing your project when you're ready, when it's the right time. You know, sometimes people overlook this part, and I think it's just as important as planning. If you're not in the right frame of mind, especially if it's going to be something that is intense, it's going to take some time, you need to be really ready to weather the storm, have that intense work. So make sure that you're in the best possible frame of mind, it's good timing, and that it's going to fit with what's going on in your life right now. Change your mindset. I'm going to encourage you to think of your projects as an investment. Okay, yeah, it costs you money to hire a professional organizer, but then you're going to get a decluttered and organized house. Is it worth it for peace of mind for you, to be less stressed, to be able to come home and finally relax, to save money because you're not always looking and having to buy new things because you can't find them? Again, with saving time, you don't have to look all the time. When you think of something as an investment, then you're like, okay, like that's one of the reasons why you wanted to do solar, because when you look at the numbers and crunch the numbers, it's a long-term investment that pays for itself. Prepare your mindset. Know that there might be some challenges. Some things might stall you. Some things might happen. There might be some challenges. It might not be that easy. But if you're prepared for that, it makes those transitions and those obstacles a lot easier to get through. So just be very aware of your mindset and what you're thinking. I'd also say be upfront with all people involved. If it's just you, obviously, we just talked about mindset and planning and being honest with yourself. But if it involves other people, that's why I say when I really emphasize it as much as possible when I'm doing a physical job. Okay, this is going to take time. Here's my guesstimate. In my little contract, I talk about, if you say you want to work with me and there are distractions such as kids, you take phone calls during our time together, that adds time to the project. So as humanly possible, be upfront with everyone, continue to keep them in the loop. I think that that's something that's really important. I chuckle, Tony's always done any remodeling to our home, but I hear when people are like, oh, it's supposed to take a month and it's, now month 5. And I think part of the frustration from what I've gathered is there's not good communication. There's not clear communication. So be upfront with everyone that will be involved in your project. Take action from today's podcast. Recognize where in the past you haven't taken the time to do things right. Examine those situations and figure out why you rushed through the project. Change your mindset about the amount of time it takes to complete a project. Create a plan to spend the necessary time on your project. Take your time and do it right. On our next episode, we're talking about what you should know by the time you're 50, part 2. Go out, clear your clutter to create the life you choose, deserve, and desire. When you clear your clutter, you can share your gifts with the world. Sign up for our free newsletter at reawakenyourbrilliance.com. If you've enjoyed Clear Your Clutter Inside and Out, please rate, review, and share us.